Brendon. Brendon is from 11 Degrees Entertainment. Welcome, Brendon.
Thanks, Nicky.
The guest list is New Zealand's wedding and event planning show. We're talking to Sue Fleischl from Abbeyville Estate, and we're talking to a real-life bride, Kristy. So from a gossip point of view, earlier this month, Kelly Rawland got married.
Indeed, she did.
She did. She married her manager, Tim Witherspoon, in a very, very private ceremony in Costa Rica. So congratulations to the two.
It's a pity we didn't get to see it.
No, it would be nice to be in Costa Rica, to say. Brendon, you're a supplier to the wedding industry. I'm a supplier to the wedding industry as a wedding planner. So we both have a huge amount of experience across the whole of New Zealand with regards to what couples should be looking for when they're looking at booking a wedding venue. So I'd like to talk today about all of those aspects. What makes a great wedding venue?
I'm looking for a venue which has great access. I can turn up with my truck or van and unload freely without getting in the way of other people, without being seen by potential guests. And I think that's probably top of my list for looking for venues.
The next big question is, where are we going to get married? It is one of the biggest questions with regards to planning the wedding. So there's a lot of things that they need to decide when actually choosing a venue. A big one is where in forms of location. So most people do choose a location that's quite close to where they live, which is quite important. So they don't have big travel costs and they can contain things and they can visit the venue on a regular basis. And next question that they need to answer is whether they want to get married and have the ceremony and the reception in one venue, or whether they want to go to multiple locations. So have the ceremony perhaps in a church and then a reception at another location. And there is no right or wrong answer. Some people pull it off beautifully and they have ceremony in church and reception in another venue, and that works beautifully, and other people have it all in one location.
And probably one of the things that helps them decide would be budget. It's very costly to have separate events all over the place, and transporting everybody. You know, how are they going to transport their guests? Would the guests be comfortable travelling in a bus? Do they know each other? Are they from different cultures where that's possibly not appropriate? A rickshaw, perhaps. It's really important to consider that.
And then it's a case of the style of wedding that people want to look at. So whether they want to go for a beach wedding, a vineyard, a garden, whether they want to go into a hotel or a traditional style of venue, or a purpose-built venue, like Abbeyville Estate. And we're going to be talking to Sue Fleischl later on in the show, and that is what is now a purpose-built venue. So there's so many different options that people can opt for. They can look at a marquee. They can have it in their backyard if they want to. So there are many, many options, and all of these come with different price scales.
Try and draw a line of clarity between idealism and realism. That's our job. What do they want? What's their vision? And what can we help them provide with what their budget is and the other aspects.
Absolutely.
By having that experience, that you have all these other options that not necessarily diverts them too far from their original vision, but still gives them the overall feeling that they are loved. They're going to have the wedding of the century. Everybody's going to talk about their event as being the greatest wedding that they've been to, and that's the best thing that we could ever hope for from our clients.
Another thing that's really important for couples is when they get the quote from the venue itself, is to go through that really, really carefully alongside with the contract and check that everything is actually in that quote.
And they're not necessarily going to know what to look for, so they need people like you and I to be able to point out, yes, this is covered, but does it cover that? And we will know, because we've worked with most of these venues anyway, whether it is covered in the original quote or not.
One of my biggest bugbears with a lot of venues, and unfortunately a lot of other suppliers within our industry, is sometimes when they quote, they're not quoting GST inclusive. They should be, because it is business to consumer, but unfortunately they're not quoting GST inclusive. So a client is getting a quote and not aware that they've still got to add another 15%. And that's a huge shock for a lot of couples when they think that they've got to spend, say it's $15,000, not realizing they've got to put another 15% on top of that, which is a major shock for a lot of customers.
Yes, it would be, yeah.
So you can imagine. Thank you, Brendon. Now, speaking more of venues, when we come back from the break, we're going to be talking to Sue Fleischl from Abbeville Estate. Welcome back. Following on from our theme of venues, my special guest today, Sue Fleischl. Sue owns Abbeville, out near Auckland Airport. She also owns Great Catering Company. Sue, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Now, first of all, how did you get into the industry? Because you are a trained chef.
I am, yes. Well, I've been cooking for many, many years. I actually started my training back in the 80s when I was a young girl in London at the Savoy Hotel, and worked in hotels and restaurants for many, many years. And it was really in the early 90s, 1990, that I discovered catering. I was living in Melbourne and I had a young child, and I had to find something in the hospitality industry that would fit in with my lifestyle. So I went and approached a couple of caterers, thinking that I could just do some work during the day, working in boardrooms or doing cocktail parties. And it worked out perfectly. So I registered my own business called Sue Chef Catering, which I ran for 5 years in Melbourne. I was incredibly busy, and I decided to come back to New Zealand in 1995. Worked for a couple of caterers here and thought, I can do this myself. So I bought a stainless steel bench. I stuck it in the corner of my living room. I was renting a house in Sandringham, and I was bold enough to call myself the Great Catering Company. That's how it all started. So it just grew from strength to strength. You know, my first 3 clients were Cartholt, Harvey, Chapman Tripp and PricewaterhouseCoopers, 3 major corporates in the market. And through working with them and doing all their private and corporate catering, the business just grew. And over the years, well, very quickly, we started getting into the wedding market, which is something that I feel that we specialise in now.
Fantastic. What a great story. Now, when you got the call to come and have a look at what is now Abbeville Estate, to come and have a look at the buildings, and then you went out and had a look at them, what were your first thoughts?
Oh, look, it was a funny story, Nikki. I remember the day I was sitting in the office and I had a phone call from the Auckland Airport. Because as you know, Auckland Airport, they have a lot of property out by the airport. And they said that they'd come across these old buildings that had been inhabited for quite a while, and they didn't know what to do with them. And when I asked a few questions, they said, well, there's a big old homestead, there's a big red barn, and we're thinking about moving a church on site. And I just went, stop, right there. And I jumped in my car, raced out to number 5 Nixon Road. And as soon as I came to the end of the driveway, here we are, looking up this driveway with these big old gnarly trees with beautiful countryside all around. It was just like a little piece of undiscovered heaven. So I drove up the driveway thinking, my gosh, I know exactly what we can do with this place. I had a look through the buildings, and believe me, Nikki, these were really run down. You know, they were full of rats and possums. The wallpaper was falling off. There had obviously been a fire inside. The church it looked like it was in 2 pieces. I think it fell off the truck while they were moving it. But I could just see the vision of what these places could be. And so I asked for a copy of the plans, and I took them home and scribbled all over them about the layout, how it was, what we could do with it. And my golden number was to get 100 seats in one room.
Great. Good number.
Yeah, good number. I think weddings 80 and over is sort of, you know, a good market to hit. And I managed that if they could move some of the walls around and move some of the windows and change some of the doors, we could actually get a really good flow through the homestead, and there would be enough room there to do a decent sized commercial kitchen. So I scribbled on the plans. I also gave an A4 sheet of paper with all the things that I wanted, you know, to make this the perfect venue. Because, you know, with the Great Catering Company, we've been doing weddings for many, many years. So with all those years of experience, I knew exactly what the brides wanted and what we needed to make sure that we could do perfect events.
Because that is a big thing. There are many venues across New Zealand, but a lot of them have been born out of buildings that aren't actually geared to have an event in them. So therefore, they don't have a purpose-built catering kitchen, or the rooms are not actually geared to house the spaces that we actually need, which makes it really challenging from a supplier's perspective to actually put those events in.
Yes, and that was the challenge that I had. How do we take this old homestead and turn it into a commercial operation? So there's all things to consider: the comfort, the temperature, the lighting. Also, people are going to want to take photographs in here all the time. Have you got enough light coming in for that? Do you have enough toilet facilities? Do you have the waste? Do you have the power? I was lucky that I was working with a fabulous company like Auckland Airport that have, money that they could put into it. So they were able to tick all the boxes.
From when they contacted you
Yes.
to actually opening the doors for your first event, how long did that take?
About 18 months.
It's pretty ambitious, that's good.
Yes, yes, it was. We had, because they're all heritage listed buildings built in the 1850s, there was a lot of dealing with the historic houses, historic trusts, and that we had to make sure that everything was done by the books. But because they're such significant buildings, the old church that we've got, everybody knows. I think nearly every New Zealander has driven past it on the way to the airport at some stage in their life. So they were really keen to get them up and running as quickly as possible.
That's fantastic. That's gorgeous. What was your first event? What was the first event that they had at Abbeville?
The first event was actually our opening.
Oh,
we
great.
opened. We opened on the 1st of April on 2012, and we invited all the people that had been involved with those buildings. They may have lived there. They may have had a member of the family that was buried in the cemetery where the church used to be. And we had 120 people there, and they were just delightful. It was lovely to have them along and hear the stories from the people that used to live in the homestead, the people that used to play in the barn or watch the cow sales in the barn or play in the loft upstairs or bale hay. Just gorgeous, gorgeous stories. And we had a blessing and a lovely ceremony and an unveiling of Abbeville Estate.
How fantastic is that? That's brilliant. Now, our show is obviously focused towards brides and couples getting married. So what would you suggest to a couple before they come and before they actually contact you looking for a venue? What should they be thinking about with regards to their venue? What are the key elements before they actually say, right, we're looking for a venue. What do we need in a venue?
Good question. They need to get a clear idea of what sort of wedding they want. And if you're wanting a formal wedding, if you're wanting something casual, do you want to have something that is inside and outside? Are you trying to find a venue where you can get married on site as well? Do you want to be able to hang things out in the garden? Do you want to have photos on site? Do you need to have car parking? There's also other things to look out for, like are there any restrictions on the venue? Are there time restrictions? Are there liquor restrictions? Are there decorating restrictions? Some venues will let you bring your own decorations, and some venues have their own preferred suppliers that they like you to use. So there is a big list of things to consider. But I do recommend that to all brides and grooms, couples getting married, to look at all the venues that they may be interested in before they even think about looking at money.
It's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
What's your plans and what's the dream for the next few years for Abbeville and for yourself?
Oh, Abbeville, well, just to develop the wedding scene, we've been so busy. We've had 2 summer seasons there now, and both have been incredibly busy, and we've had beautiful, beautiful weddings. So the wedding season during winter is a challenge. So we would like to see some more winter weddings because we do have the facilities to keep everyone inside and keep them warm.
To know.
Yeah.
So it's a good wedding venue for weddings, for winter weddings.
All year round.
Fantastic.
Yes, all year round. And in a perfect world, I'd like 2 or 3 more Abbevilles around the country.
Nice. That's great. Sue, thank you so much for joining me here on the guest list.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
We've been talking to Sue Fleischl from Abbeville Estate and the Great Catering Company. We'll be back after the break. Hi, and welcome back to the guest list. Today, my guest bride is Kristy. Welcome, Kristy.
Thank you.
Now, Kristy and Connor got married on Waiheke Island earlier this year. You got married at Delamore Lodge. Yes, you did. And your wedding was a little unusual because you also got married in the middle of a cyclone.
I did.
That was a little unexpected, and given that it was in the middle of summer, we really weren't expecting a cyclone to creep up on us.
Yeah.
How were you feeling in the week leading up to your wedding when you knew that the cyclone was going to be bearing down on that weekend?
Well, I actually didn't know about the cyclone until maybe 2 days before the wedding. So I was actually getting a pedicure and a wax, as you do. And my wax lady said, oh yeah, I hear there's going to be a cyclone on Saturday. I was like, no, I didn't know that. I just thought it was going to be raining. So yeah, that was a bit scary and I was a bit worried.
Well, we'll come back to the effects that the cyclone had on your wedding in a few minutes. But first tell me, what made you choose Waiheke as your destination, your location for your wedding?
Okay, well we live in Auckland and Waiheke is just such a beautiful place, so magical, and I guess so many people get married there because it is a beautiful island, and you know it would be nice to get married in Fiji, but no one will come to your wedding, will they? So Waiheke Island, basically the next best thing. So yeah, that's why we just love Waiheke.
And you chose Delamore Lodge. Was it your first choice, or were there other contenders?
Well, we had looked at a couple, but the main thing for us was having a venue that had accommodation on site, so that's why Delamore was perfect.
Fantastic.
Loved it.
How challenging was it planning everything on an island, so you couldn't go and visit the venue whenever you wanted to? Obviously there was travel involved and all those sorts of things, and all the suppliers were scattered, and for the most part they were on the island. How challenging was that from a planning perspective?
Yeah, it was quite difficult. We did make a couple of trips over to Waiheke, but I guess it was more challenging than getting married on the mainland in Auckland. It wasn't too bad though.
Now another challenge that you had that a lot of couples might not have experienced while they're planning is that you were pregnant, and then your beautiful son Jackson was born during your planning stage.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Jackson was born in August 2013, and it was, I guess, at the start of planning the wedding I was pregnant, as you said, so I found the venue when I was pregnant. That was difficult. I spent a lot of time on the couch on my iPad just looking at, you know, planning little bits and bobs, but yeah, it was hard. And then he was born, and then I kind of stopped planning because obviously I had no sleep. But yeah, no, I guess it was more challenging than just planning a wedding without a baby. But it was good. It worked out fine.
Fantastic. And Jackson had a part to play in your wedding ceremony. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so he was a very good boy. He just had a big sleep before the ceremony, so it worked out really well. And my mum held him during the ceremony, and he was so cute. He was just looking up at me with his beautiful little eyes, so he was good, and he had a cute little outfit on, which was good.
He was actually incredibly well behaved.
Yeah, he was.
I've done lots of weddings where it can go incredibly wrong having kids, and especially one of Jackson's age,
Yeah.
but he was incredibly well behaved.
He
It was
was.
wonderful. So, perfect baby, I have to say.
He is.
Kirsty, tell us about the lovely man that you married.
Well, Connor, my now husband, and my father of obviously Jackson. He's a great man. We've been together for almost 5 years now, and yeah, love of my life.
Where did you guys meet?
We met through mutual friends. So a very good friend of ours, Mark, he introduced us, and yeah, it all went from there.
I did hear there was a little story about his lack of hair at the top.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That came out at the wedding.
Yeah, he's bald or shaved, as he says.
All right.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your choice of colour scheme and theme for your wedding.
Okay, so we chose lilac for the girls and for the guys' ties, and basically everything was lilac. I just love the colour. It's just such a beautiful colour. Yeah, it was fresh and clean, and yeah.
And it did work very well with the venue, because
Yeah,
the
it
venue is
does.
quite neutral, so it was a beautiful, and it's summer, it was spring, and it was a fresh, lovely colour to have in there as well. Yeah. Now we'll go back to Cyclone Lucy, that made herself very well known on the day of your wedding. How did that affect everything?
Well, on the morning I remember waking up at beautiful Delamore Lodge and just heard the wind, and the wind was whistling through the windows, and I thought, oh my God, it's, you know, I was so nervous anyway, but then the weather, I thought there's no way we're getting married outside. It's horrible, it's raining, it's windy, but I got up and I just kept thinking, oh yeah, it's going to clear up, it's going to be fine. but it didn't clear up, and it was just added to my nerves, I guess. But then I at one point I just thought, I can't control the weather, so I can't dwell on it, and that kind of helped.
But you did have a solid backup plan, because you had a ceremony plan for Plan B for being inside, so that kicked into place, and your ceremony was inside. Yeah. And obviously your reception was all undercover as well. And you were quite lucky in as much as during the time that drinks and canapes were served, while it was quite windy, there was a break and there was no no rain, so guests could actually go outside for that period, which was quite nice.
Yes, it was.
And I know that you had planned to go down to the beach for some of your photos, but you did actually end up cancelling that part, which, to be honest, I think was quite a good call, because I think you would have lost your hair and makeup and all of that, and ended up looking a little bit bedraggled. Yeah. So exactly. Are you quite glad that you made that call and not have gone down to the beach?
Yeah, well, we actually had planned to go to this beautiful Pahutakawa tree quite close to Dallimore Lodge, but then I thought, traipsing through a muddy paddock with my beautiful shoes, I didn't think it was a good idea, and I'm glad I didn't.
And looking now, I'm assuming you've got all your photos back from your photographer. Are you happy with all the photos that you have received?
Yes.
So you don't feel like you've missed out on a huge...
No, I mean, Dallimore Lodge is so beautiful that everything, got all the photos there, so it was perfect.
Fantastic. So even though Lucy showed her ugly head, it didn't put a dampener on your day? No,
I think actually I was quite happy that Lucy came, because even my guests were saying that it added to the character of the wedding, and not many people can say they got married in a cyclone. So
no, they can't.
No, but it was good. I was actually quite happy with it. It didn't ruin my day at all.
Now, you're fortunate from that point of view, because I was actually also on Waiheke, obviously, at your wedding for that day, and I came back earlier on the ferry and was very grateful that your wedding went pretty smoothly, because coming back on the ferry, I was amongst a lot of other wedding guests who'd been at other weddings on Waiheke, and a lot of the weddings actually were cancelled or cut very, very short because they hadn't had a Plan B option. And literally the ceremony had taken place, but everything else had had to be cancelled because the ferry service was now stopping. People had to leave the wedding early. So people who'd gone through months and months and months of planning, huge expense, basically had their wedding cut down into just a mere few hours. So very fortunate
very
for
lucky.
you that you still managed to get your full day in, which was, I was thrilled for you, which is absolutely fantastic. Is there anything on your day, looking back now, that you would have changed?
Well, our DJ.
Oh, really?
He was shocking.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah, there was a lot of music that was very important to us to play at the wedding, and we actually went over to Waiheke 2 weeks before the wedding to actually meet with him. We hadn't actually met him before, to discuss, how important some of the songs on the playlist were, and he actually only played about 3 of them, and we'd given him a list of over 100. Obviously, I didn't expect him to play all of them, but at least, a big chunk of them. So it was, I was quite gutted about that.
Yeah, so that was a case of just not listening to your requests at all, not hearing, what your requests, your concerns, or anything were, and not sticking to the brief at all. Yeah. I know he did have a few challenges, but we did have to move where he was going to be again because of Lucy and having to restructure things, but that certainly wouldn't have affected the playlist in any one way at all. So, so that was kind of unforgivable. So I would suggest a piece of advice for future couples: don't be afraid to press the point with whichever form of entertainment you're going with, that these are very important songs that you want played, and they must be played at some stage.
Yeah, absolutely, and we did do that, but I think also advice would be to actually do your research on DJs and get recommendations from people, because the music is so important in a wedding. So
absolutely. Yeah. Any other pieces of advice that you would give to couples?
I think just relax and obviously take your time planning your wedding. Don't try and plan a wedding in a really short time, because it's a very stressful time. And also don't worry about things you can't control, like the weather.
It's a very, very good point. Kristy, thank you so much for joining me here on the guest list.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to wish you, Connor and Jackson, the very, very best for the future and your beautiful family together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, as Kristy has pointed out, that you can actually include kids in your wedding, and Jackson was the perfect baby, but not all the time. are kids perfect in the wedding? So a lot of couples do ask me, should they have kids or not have kids at the wedding? And there's no right or wrong answer. But what I always suggest is that you have a plan when you're going to have kids at your wedding. Don't just leave it to chance. Make sure that there are some activities for them so that they are entertained during whichever section, whether it is a ceremony or through the reception. But I'm going to leave you with this little clip from YouTube, which I found, which I think is just priceless. Enjoy. It's priceless. Well, that's it for our show today. Thank you again for joining us, and I'll see you next week on the guest list.